If you're launching or growing your business in Canada and you're wondering about taxes on goods and services, then you are in the right spot. Today we're going to talk about everything you need to know on how to apply and receive your GST/HST number. In this video, I'm going to cover, first of all, what is a GST and HST number? Do you need it? How do you register for it? And a step-by-step application process, plus tips on how to make sure that you are in compliance with the CRA when it comes to your HST number. Without further ado, let's jump right in. First of all, to kick things off, let's define what is GST, what is HST, what's the difference, what does it stand for, and why does it even exist? First of all, GST, this stands for the Goods and Services Tax, and this is a 5% federal tax that applies across Canada. HST, or the Harmonized Sales Tax, is a blend of that 5% GST plus whatever your provincial sales tax is in that respective province. And in provinces where you have the HST and there's no GST and PST, the reason is because it makes it easier for everyone involved, because you don't have to worry about two different tax rates. It's just all in one encompassing rate called the HST. And here's a snapshot where you can see the different HST rates across different provinces. And understanding these rates is helpful for both consumers and for businesses, because that way you know exactly how much you either have to pay in HST or how much you have to receive or collect in HST across different provinces. And this is a very important underlying concept for our own country, for our tax infrastructure. Why? Because this HST, GST helps fund essential public services, things you use on a daily basis. I'm talking about education. I'm talking about things like healthcare, and that list goes on. That's why it's such an important part of our economic infrastructure. So, looking at this list, you can see Ontario, New Brunswick, Newfoundland Labrador, Prince Edward Island, Nova Scotia. What's really interesting is that 3 out of those provinces, New Brunswick, those 3 Atlantic provinces, are at 15%, 5% federal, and 10% on the provincial side. Nova Scotia is slightly under at 5% federal and 9% provincial. And Ontario is the lowest in this cohort at 13%, 5% federal, and 8% provincial. You'll also notice that the GST, irrespective of the HST rate, does not change. It's a standard 5%. And that's across the country. Even the provinces that don't have HST, GST is 5%. And when you tack on those different PST or the provincial sales tax, that's where it's going to differ a little bit. And ultimately, based on the provincial sales tax rate, HST will end up being, in this case, 13% to 15%. And personally, I found it quite interesting that Ontario actually has the lowest HST rate across these provinces. Kind of interesting. Next up, let's determine, do you even need to register for GST, HST based on the goods or services that you provide? Let's break that down. There are two categories of registration types. One is your mandatory registration, and two is your voluntary. What's the difference? Well, when it comes to your mandatory registration, you have to register, you must register if your revenue exceeds $30,000 in a single calendar quarter over 4 consecutive quarters. And this applies to all businesses, whether you are a sole proprietorship, whether you have a partnership, whether you have a corporation, doesn't really matter. If you fall in this bucket, you have to mandatory register for GST or HST. And in the next bucket, the voluntary registration bucket, you might still want to consider registering for HST or GST, even if you are under that 30,000 threshold. Why? Because it offers plenty of benefits. The biggest one being you get to claim input tax credits, or ITCs for short, on your business expenses. That is a real tax credit that puts real money into your pockets. That's a huge benefit, because part of your business expenses you get to take back as a credit. So if you are thinking about maybe you should register or not, let that be one of the biggest factors, that ITC. Not to mention, it gives your business a huge boost in credibility, because when you issue an invoice and there's that HST number, you are no different than any other proper functioning corporation, proper functioning partnership. Your businesses will stand out from the rest of the crowd because now you are a credible business with an HST number. So it helps separate from those little businesses that you have on the fly from a real credible business. And it goes without saying, if your business is legitimate, if your business has credibility, you're going to get more customers, right? Because if you're going to spend money on something, wouldn't you want to go to a legit business versus one of those shady side businesses? Think about it. That HST is like a proud badge you can put on your invoices. And if you are going to go down this path of voluntary registration, I have a quick note for you, and that is that the effective registration date is usually the date of your request or up to 30 days before that. And you'll need to remain registered for at least 1 year unless you cease your operations. Now, what actually counts towards that 30,000 threshold is also very important because it would be way too easy if it was just that for every dollar you earn, that every dollar counts towards that 30,000 threshold. That would be, again, way too easy. But we like to keep things complex here in our Canadian government and taxes. Anyways, so in order to count towards that 30,000 threshold, you're looking at taxable sales of goods and services at the standard rate. You're talking about also including zero rated supplies. Again, that's a specific category. And in some cases, you're also going to include services performed abroad that would be otherwise taxable in Canada. Now, if I left it at that, again, that would still be a little bit too easy. So there are also some special cases. So, for example, public service bodies or charities or non-resident businesses might have additional rules and complexities beyond just what I covered. If you fall into one of those buckets, then I highly recommend reaching out to a qualified tax professional to walk you through those specific cases because you don't want to end up on the wrong side of the CRA when it comes to taxes. And understanding the difference between zero rated goods versus exempt goods is extremely important, no matter if you are a consumer or a business provider of goods and services. So let's break down what does that actually mean. When it comes to zero rate supplies, technically it's still taxable. It's just that the tax rate is set to 0%. And if you are a business that falls into that category, and even though you may be charging 0% for your goods or services, you can still claim whatever input tax credit you are paying on your business expenses. And some examples include in this category are basic groceries, agricultural products, and prescription drugs. An easy way to think about this is, think about the times maybe you went to like Costco, Walmart, or Food Basics, No Frills, etc., those grocery stores. There are certain items you'll notice that even though you may have bought like 10 or 20 goods, you only paid HST on a handful of them. Well, now you know why. And same thing, when you get your prescription, you may have noticed that, hey, there's no HST. Or if you haven't noticed, well, take a look next time on those little receipts that you get from the pharmacy. You'll notice you're actually paying HST. So that's what those zero rated exempt supplies mean. Now let's talk about exempt supplies, which are different than zero rated supplies. And the main reason is because if you are in that exempt category, well, that means you fall outside the scope of tax. And businesses that fall outside that scope of tax, that also means that you cannot claim ITCs because you're not charging any tax on those goods and services. Therefore, you cannot recover any GST or HST paid on those inputs related to business expenses. Some examples include healthcare services, educational services, financial services. So again, going back to those examples about groceries, take a look next time. You'll notice that you likely haven't paid taxes on those services either. Because GST and HST taxes vary based on being zero rated or exempt, this is crucial. You have to keep proper invoicing and you have to keep proper documentation. Having accurate records help businesses and also consumers ensure that businesses are one charging the right rate of tax, the correct rate of tax, claim their eligible tax credits, and also remain compliant with CRA requirements. So if you have been neglecting those receipts in a shoebox somewhere, or if you haven't really paid attention to the invoices that you are charging your customers, this is your wake up call. So definitely take a look at those receipts. Make sure to take a look at those invoicing. If you have not been keeping proper records or invoicing or bookkeeping, well, I'm going to help you out here because I know a lot of people that can very easily fall into this category of I just need to run my business and the bookkeeping will just figure itself out. That's not really how it works. So let me actually tell you how to keep proper invoicing and bookkeeping if you have not already done so. When you issue an invoice to your customer, you have to make sure that it includes very specific information to remain compliant with the CRA. So yes, you cannot just make up any template on Word or Excel and start issuing invoices. You have to make sure you are in compliance with the CRA's requirement. And think about it, this also helps make sure that businesses and consumers know exactly how much sales tax is being charged, and they have a paper record of exactly how much is being charged for both of their records. So, what information do you need? Well, let's talk about that. First, you need to make sure you have your business name and the GST HST registration number clearly spelled out because it identifies one is who is charging the tax and confirms that you are indeed registered with the CRA. Secondly, you need to make sure you have a clear invoice date and a clear invoice number because it provides a unique reference and the specific date that the transaction took place, which is crucial for proper record keeping. Next, you want to make sure you have the customer name and address listed on your invoice because it identifies who is being billed and ensures proper documentation for both sales and potential CRA audits, which is a huge, huge thing. So make sure you have those items as well. Next, goes without saying, you need to have a description for whatever business services or business goods you are providing. Why? Because that details what is being sold so that both parties understand exactly what the charge is for. Next, you want to make sure that you also have the GST/HST amount that is being charged out very clearly, or a statement of tax that is being included. And this has to clearly show the customer how much tax they are paying or indicates how much tax is embedded in that price. Because you may have seen that certain place you go to, the tax is actually built into their final price. It's important to identify if that is the case, how much tax is built in or is being charged on top. The next bit you want to make sure you include on your invoicing is the terms of payment because this helps outline when and how much the payment should be made. It also helps prevent any confusion on, okay, how much do I owe you? At what time frame do I owe you? And what happens if I actually don't pay you, right? You want to make sure there's no confusion around terms of payment and it's very clearly laid out. Now, I'm also going to do you a real solid. I'm actually going to show you a sample invoice that you can use. If you want to have this as a template, by all means, go for it. It's free of charge. Just literally take a screenshot of what I'm showing you on screen, and you can use that as a sample invoice to make sure you're compliant with the CRA. Just make sure you do your due diligence. If something is missing, you take care of that on your own. The point is that this will give you an idea of what a good sample invoice looks like. Now that we've talked about why you might need an HST or GST number and who needs to register for HST or GST, let's talk about the application process itself. This might actually be the whole reason you're watching this video, and so let's cut to the chase. Now, my top recommendation when it comes to registration is definitely you want to do it online. It is the fastest, it is the most convenient way possible to get your registration done and over with. Now, if you can't register online for whatever reason, I'm also going to show you alternatives, but I highly, highly recommend if you can register online. It's just easy. No other ways about it. It's just easy. So, what do you need in order to register for HST or GST? First, you need to gather the required information, and that includes before you even actually start the registration process, you want to make sure you have the following: a business number or a BN number. If you don't have one yet, you will obtain it during this process. You want to make sure that you have a legal business name, the official registered name of your business. You want to make sure you have a business address, the physical location, which can affect your provincial rates. And as you saw earlier in this video, each province has different rates, so that's why this location is very important. And the nature of your business, a clear description of what do you actually do? What goods or services do you provide? Having these items readily available before you start the registration process will help you immensely because it'll allow you to complete that much quicker and sooner, knowing what you need before you get started. Next step, now that you've gathered all this information, you're going to log on to the CRA's business registration portal and you're going to follow these steps. This is now where you get to actually input all the information you've collected and you're going to select your effective registration date. And as I mentioned earlier in the video, if you are doing a voluntary registration, the effective date is the date of your request or 30 days prior. You can choose. Next step, now that you've entered this information, you filled it all out, you're going to submit your application. And we can use the net file system to submit the application. And you can typically expect to get a confirmation and your GST HST number within a few days. It's not so hard once you know exactly what to do and how to do it, right? It may seem like, okay, HST, GST number, what is it? Do I need it? That's the whole point of this video, is to help simplify it for you and walk you through the process. Really demystify that it's not really that complicated and hard to get that GST HST number getting started with. But I'm not done yet. There's still more to come. So what happens if you cannot register online? Like I said, there's alternatives. The first alternative is you can register by mail. You can complete Form RC1, which is a request for business number, download it from the CRA website or pick up a copy at the local CRA office. Or if you want, you can click on the description down below. I'll leave a link to that form so you can grab a copy in case you need it. But please, again, make sure you register online. This is just in case. Number three, if you cannot do it online, you cannot do it over mail for whatever reason. The third option is to register by phone. You can call the CRA's business inquiries line at 1-800-959-5525. This is their CRA number for personalized assistance from a representative. Now, once you've completed your application process online, by mail, or by telephone, what happens next? Well, what happens is that you get a confirmation from the CRA along with some important details like your GST or HST number, plus some account details that you will need to hold on to. And the information that you're going to get includes filing dates and guidelines on how to actually submit your GST and HST return. Because getting your number is just a starting process. You actually have to file HST returns periodically because you are ultimately responsible for collecting and remitting HST, GST back to the government, the CRA. Plus, that pack is also going to include some tips on how to set up an invoicing system and how to make sure that you have tight record keeping so you stay in compliance with the CRA. And I know this is a pain in the you know what, and all this is extra admin work, and you would rather just be out selling your product and your services. But trust me when I say this, getting organized from the get go is going to save you a world of pain and headache later on. And that could include, for example, penalties for missed filing, or maybe you haven't collected the right HST or GST. So get organized, spend the time up front. It's going to pay dividends later on, trust me. So now that you've gotten your HST, GST number application filed, maybe at this point in time, you've actually received your GST, HST number. This is just the beginning. Next step, you actually have to stay in compliance with HST, GST rules now that you are registered. And I'm going to give you some tips on how you can stay in compliance with the CRA. Because let's face it, no one wants to get a CRA audit and have to pay penalties later on. So first, always charge and file on time. What does that mean? Always apply the correct tax rate to your sales and make sure that your GST, HST returns are submitted by their due dates. There are very specific due dates. Whether you file annually, quarterly, or monthly, just make sure you don't miss any of those dates. I've said this a few times, you want to keep record details. So what you want to do is find a way, whether it's digital, physical, like I personally recommend digital, but you want to keep all your records of all your invoices and your receipts. Use a reliable accounting software with tax reminders can be a game changer because when the CRA comes knocking, you don't want to go through the hassle of trying to figure out and go back in time to figure out what your HSA should be. Keep on top of it. Again, trust me, it's going to save you dividends when the CRA comes knocking. And last, just stay informed. One easy way is just stay subscribed to this channel. I love to provide updates on all things taxes, personal finance. So you can just stay subscribed to this channel as one option, but that's not the only option. Keep up with changes in taxes. You can check out the CRA website. There's other blogs you can follow, or when in doubt, just call a tax professional. Maybe have a check-in with them that, hey, has anything changed? Should you be doing anything differently? The more you do on that front, it's gonna just again pay dividends when the CRA comes knocking. Because by following these steps, you're not only protecting yourself and your business from potential penalties, but you're also optimizing what you should be able to claim that is rightfully yours in terms of those very valuable input tax credits or ITCs. And that wraps up today's video. We've covered everything on what is GST and HST, the different GST, HST rates. Do you need to register mandatory and voluntary registration? We've talked about how to actually go on about going through the registration process. What type of details do you need to register? Mandatory registration, voluntary registration. How do you register by phone, by mail, online? We've covered all that and more. And if you found this video helpful, do me an itty bitty favor and hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and share this video with other business owners that might be missing out on some potential valuable input tax credits. Or if they're struggling with how to register for HST, again, please share this video with your network so you can help others get on the straight path when it comes to HST and GST number and the application process. And make sure you are subscribed to this channel so you can stay up to date on my in-depth guides on all things personal finance, on all things business and economics. That's it for now. I'll talk to you in the comments section.